Now we got great pictures of Uranus, which we only saw as a dot for many years. Now with the Hubble and the space shots, we're getting pictures of this is Uranus. It's another picture of Uranus where you can see the moons around it. And Uranus is like this. It's on its side as it rolls around the solar system. It's not like the other planets where they're spinning like top up. Well, Venus is spinning bottom up. The rest of the planets spinning top up. But Uranus is on its side. It's the more eccentric one. And it represents the freedom and the independence beyond Saturnian limits. The need for excitement, for doing something different, the shocking things. This one is, these are the beginnings of Neptune. These are ones of Neptune, pictures of Neptune. The gas clouds, it's Neptune is your faith, your beliefs, your dependencies, your expectations, your sense of adventure and romance. I want to travel here. I got to do something. I believe I'm supposed to do something. And this is a close-up of Neptune, but the pixels are breaking up because it was a very faint image. And then we have Pluto. 3 different views of Pluto. These are fairly recent, where we're actually getting some seeming texture on it. But now that planets are going by it, we actually see the shape of Pluto and see areas of the terrain of Pluto. And there's the moon of Chiron. This is a close-up of the Pluto. So they're going in to find they didn't expect to find a very unique geography to Pluto, but since the spaceships have been by there, they're finding tremendously unique functions and flows of liquid. But liquid at this distance is not water. It's going to be some kind of gas or acid or something, some chemical that's moving around or freezing. So, okay, this is the first level. So it's just getting to know the planets. And so that's looking at the physical nature. Here it is, it's there. We've got to say, what's it mean to me? So what is all this? How do we make sense out of it? So we're having, if you think of the planets like, it's almost like salad dressing. We have these, it's all, when you shake up a salad dressing, you see everything's all together and you just put it on your salad. But if you let it sit for a while, you're going to see the oils and the vinegar separating. You're going to get these different layers. So the planets are like these different layers as we see them. So now this comes more closely to how to interpret them. Where are we? Okay. Okay. We start out from, this is just, we're building up a chart. I want you to get used to thinking about a chart and how we're looking at a symbol of a chart with the symbols on it and what they represent. But here you would see, this is, I'm using an example of Carl Jung's chart, but here you have the zodiac, and each sign has its color for the light and the dark and the seasons of the year. And you see the color going around it. And then on this chart, it's the same band, but the planets are put where they, in the signs of the zodiac, where they are around the wheel. The wheel's tilted here for a reason, but you begin to see, here's the signs with the planets in certain signs. And where your planets are at the moment you're born, that's your DNA, that's your genetic code. That's your starting point, that's your blueprint for your potentials of your life. And each planet will be in different signs, and they'll be colored by the sign they're in. And it's very different if a planet's in the bright summery signs or if it's in the dark wintry signs. They function differently, they're affected differently, and we process them differently. Then the aspects are drawn, the relationships between the planets. So no matter what signs the planet's in, no matter what aspects being made, whether it's a square or opposition, the planets are still in the signs they're in. So if there's a square, it's there, but if you have, here Jung has his sun in Leo and moon in Taurus, and they square each other. So that's a stressful factor. But regardless of that, he still has to, for his security, he still needs to have his security and his sense of comfort with his moon in Taurus. And he still needs to be proud with his sun in Leo and feel he's somebody. That's his style. It's very different than someone that would be the Capricorn with a moon in Aries or Libra. Totally different textures. So this is what we're starting to get into. This is the part we're working on right this class. We're going to be not so much the aspects, the planets and the signs, and making sense out of that. Then you have the time of day, another circle. So you have the circle of the heavens above in the signs of the zodiac. On the earth, you have the lines on the earth. You have the the rising and the setting. The planets are above the horizon or below the horizon. So here we see the shaded part below the horizon of the circle. We have the houses put on. Really, so we look at a chart, we see it as one chart, but really it's two things. The signs are one thing, one circle. The houses are another circle. The signs, we experience them as the months of the year. The houses, we experience them as 2-hour periods of the day. One's based on the orbit of the Earth, one's based on the rotation of the Earth. So it's two different layers of interpretation, two different levels. So on this level also, the planets will be in certain houses. These are set for your life and potentials for your life. And then the aspects will come in and you see the stress pattern. So most popular astrology is based on understanding the houses, putting the planets in them, seeing how they affect the houses, and watching the stress patterns around it. So this is the most familiar, but it's two different levels. Let's say the most mundane or worldly, but if you stretch it out, each planet, it's almost like if you're sitting meditating. I don't have a drawing of this. You're sitting meditating, your back straight. The top of your head would be like the top sphere of the signs of the zodiac, okay? And down your spine is the spinal cord, which would be the pillar of where the solar system or the planets are. At the bottom would be another circle for the Earth that you're sitting on. So just like it looks like a spool, but really it's like your backbone and your nervous systems going down the spine and the different chakras as they go up and down the spine. They affect your experience and your perceptions. But each planet, when we're working with it, is a different level, a different layer of a consciousness, a different function, a different speed, different energy, different time. They work differently, but they all have different relevance. So we can see one at a time, but we want to be able to get a sense of all of them and put them together in a package where we have the whole symphony instead of just listening to one. If you're listening to one instrument and trying to imagine what the symphony's like, that's a lot harder than listening to the whole symphony. But when you're listening to the whole symphony, it's hard to sort it out which planet is doing which, or which instrument is doing which. But a good conductor who's working with a symphony, he can tell if one violin in the middle of that 50 violins is out of tune and which one it is. He'll just know. So it's just cultivated capacity to listen. Okay, so these drawings you won't have seen. These are my own drawings to establish this planetary layers, coming to know them. We're gonna, this webinar, we're doing the planets and signs. We're gonna watch the higher energy of the signs, how they come and affect the planets. So the planets pick up that attitude. Then they throw their energy into the affairs of the houses and affect the worldly circumstances. So the next webinar series will be on the planets and the houses. And then you see how easy or difficult it is, how much stress is coming involved. And when we're looking at a chart, we see the aspects up top here, just around the wheel, but really they're stretching up and down. There's a whole texture to them as they go up and down our spine from one chakra to the other. Okay, so here the first one would be the moon, and we'll look at them. You see the moon here, and as we look at this moon, and you look up top, you see the moon's in Taurus. So we're seeing the nature of the moon in Taurus. It's going to want its security. It's going to want to be appreciated. It's going to want its comforts. It's going to want all the different categories. Daylight's increasing. It's going to want to be more free. Its daylight's greater. It wants to have its own things and thinks that it likes the best things. It's in the springtime. It's cardinal. It's fixed, I mean, so it's going to be stubborn and try and hold on to things. It's an earth sign. It likes material things. It wants to feel secure with material comforts. It's ruled by Venus, which is the planet of magnetism and love. I want this. Okay, so I want things I'm going to feel secure. When I don't have the things I want, I'm going to feel really angry and insecure. So the moon will be affected by Taurus. It'll pick up that attitude. And from picking up that attitude, it will then, so let's try and express that attitude into the affairs of the house. And as it's putting its energy from the signs with this attitude into the circumstance of the houses, it does it easy or difficultly, or with stress or smoothly, according to the aspects that come to it. And I just have to mention it. That's the simplest way to explain the mechanics of astrology. It's almost like each planet's a member of a band, and they have a theme that each one plays, and they have a certain effect each one has, and they get along with some are harmonizing, or some are in discordant relationship with each other. So when we're dealing with the moon, we're going to be dealing with the moon. It's your memories. It's your link to your mom. And in traditional astrology, they say it's your stomach, it's the breasts. That's a very gross interpretation for it. But because that's a source of nurturing, mom's the source of nurturing, nurture me, hug me, feed me, take care of me. I want to be mothered. I want to feel secure. So that's the first part. That becomes, depending how well we have those patterns set when we're first born, our habits get set probably in the first month of our life. Basic habits, whether we feel secure, whether we like our mom, whether our mom liked us, whether we're being nurtured easily, or whether we're struggling to get nurturing to be here. All of these factors happen. We come in with a predisposition to it. But moon cycles every month, and as they go by, we begin to start remembering things. So we remember who our mom is, who's not. We remember what feels secure, what doesn't. And then our Mercury tries to make sense of this to tell you we want this, we don't want, we're going this way, this is better than this. But the moon, although it's your mother, and your role as mother, it sets the attitude you have to mother and the attitude you have to being mother and to security. But the moon as a function is a function of memory and reflection. So it represents your habits, your diet, your basic habits, and those basic habits determine how well you've eaten, how well you've slept. All the basic things. If you haven't slept well or you haven't eaten well, how could you possibly function well? You've already got primary disease. If that's maintained, if you have 10 cups of coffee a day to keep going, sooner or later you're going to get sick. And it's not going to function, or sugar, or whatever. Never mind alcohol or drugs. But the moon represents all these basic concerns, but as a function, the moon is your memory. Everything before this moment that we reflect on. And even memory that goes back perhaps before this lifetime. Where did we come from? Where did this come from? How come this happened to me? Why? This is the moon represents our memory. Everything before this moment is a memory. This moment is reality. We're here real now, being all these planets, all these levels at the same time. But the moon, so we're being here now. Memories are just the chains that we hold on to from the past. I remember this experience. I remember that experience. Oh boy, that person rejected me. I remember that. My mom didn't want me. I remember that. And we bring these memories into our habit patterns, and they affect our life. And we can carry them for years, holding on to the memories and preventing ourselves from being alive to people in the moment and to the wonder of the world in the moment. So memory is an interesting function because creative thinking, in-depth perception, we go back and we have these feelings, we have these memories, we can go back over a vast number of things, but memory is a really unreliable function. Because if you're happy, you remember good things. If you're sad, you remember the sad things. If you're angry, you remember the angry. Like, it's really colored by how secure we're feeling in the moment. If we're not secure, you're not going to remember the secure things securely. You remember the other things that were similar to what you're experiencing now. And every minute, as we're having experiences now, we're going through the beginnings of a webinar, and as we're doing this, we're shoveling the experience of this webinar into our past, into our memories. So as soon as I say something, these are words, or as soon as we're talking, it's already becoming the past. How awake are you in hearing me? The good thing with the webinar, I'll be sending to you, you'll be able to listen to it again in the future and go over it again. But there's only so much to remember at any time. There's so many layers. You have to be exposed to it. You develop muscles, you develop ability. But this idea of memory being how you reflect on things. What you feel is secure. What you feel is what your basic needs are. How much sleep, how much eating, how regular, what kind of habits you have. These are all part of how healthy you're being here now. And everything that's interfered with that is memories that are pulling you back, preventing you from being just here.